are done with this chapter, Plant Kingdom Planting. So now let us take a revision of this chapter. So students, as earlier we have discussed about plant kingdom. So what is like again, if you see the plant kingdom, so it includes all kind of plants. So it is important to, it is again it is divided into two sub-kingdoms. So here plant kingdoms is again subdivided into two sub-kingdoms, cryptogams and phanerogams. So what is cryptogams? So actually cryptogams include the spore producing plants. They are non-flowering and they do not have seeds. So these kind of plants are called the cryptogams, and they have a concealed kind of reproductive system. They have reproductive system, they reproduce sexually, but it is concealed, it is hidden somewhere inside the plant. So these kind of plants are called cryptogams. Cryptos means concealed. So they include algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes. Whereas phanerogams, so phanero means visible, means they have a specialized reproductive structure. Mostly it covers seed bearing plants, that includes Angiosperms and Gymnosperms. So Gymnosperm is naked plant seed, they have naked seed, whereas Angiosperms are flowering plants. So again the plant kingdoms are broadly subdivided into two sub-kingdoms, cryptogams and phanerogams. So now if you talk about cryptogams, so it includes algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes. So algae, now algae are also called the thallophytes. Why? Because they do not have a differentiated plant, they do not have clearly differentiated plant body, like they are like in the form of thallus. So algae are chlorophyll bearing, simple, thalloid, autotrophic and largely aquatic organisms. Like what are the algae? So if I talk about algae, it will be thalloid. Why? Because they do not have well differentiated plant body, that's why they are called the thalloid. Whereas chlorophyll bearing plants, so they have chlorophyll also present, like chlorophyll A, B, xanthophyllin. So there are many kind of chlorophyll is present in the algae. So they are called the chlorophyll bearing, simple, thalloid. Autotrophic means they can make their own food by the process of photosynthesis, and they are largely aquatic organisms. So if I talk about habitat, so mostly they are the aquatic organisms. Other than this, depending on the type of pigment presented and the type of, they have a stored food. Algae is again divided into three types. So already we have discussed about the chlorophyceae. It means they have chlorophyll present. Other than this, phaeophyceae and rhodophyceae, means in phaeophyceae xanthocyanin will be present, in rhodophyceae there will be erythrocyanin. So these are the pigments on the basis of these pigments and what kind of food they have stored, whether it is starch, laminarin or fibroin. So these are the starch. On the basis of these pigments and stored food they have, algae is again classified into three classes. Those are the chlorophyceae, phaeophyceae and rhodophyceae. Other than this, algae usually reproduce vegetatively by fragmentation and asexually by the formation of different types of spores. So what is the fragmentation? It means when a particular kind of plant, like if I talk about Spirogyra, Volvox, so what happens there? If they get the favorable conditions, like they are the aquatic organisms. So if you talk about Spirogyra, so what happens there? The body is again divided into 2 or 3 parts, and each and every part of the body will give rise to a new individual. Other than this, spore formation is also common in algae, whereas sexually by the formation of gametes, which may show isogamy, anisogamy and oogamy. So like if I talk about algae, so algae also reproduce sexually. So what kind of gametes they have? It can be isogamy, means both the gametes are of same type. Anisogamy, one gamete will be of maybe smaller or larger. So aniso means they will not be of similar size. Or oogamy, oogamy means one gamete will be a large and another will be a very small. So here again, if I talk about how do they sexually reproduce, so the gametes can be of isogamy, anisogamy or oogamy. Now, so this is all about algae, means how they are classified. So they are classified on the basis of their pigments, like what kind of pigments they have present, what kind of food they store. And again, other than this, we also discussed about fragmentation. So if you recall, we have discussed about they reproduce by the fragmentation, means the body is divided into 2 or 3 parts, and each and every part of the body can give rise to a new individual. Now, so here we have discussed about algae. Again, we also discussed about the bryophytes. So these are the plants which can live in soil but are dependent on water for sexual reproduction. So what are the bryophytes? If you recall about bryophytes, so how they are more advanced from the halophytes, means they have a little bit of differentiation in their body. Other than this, they are also called the amphibians. Why? Because they need water for living. They need land as well as water. Means if they have to reproduce sexually, they need water. So so here we have this. What we need, that's why they are called the amphibian plants. Their plant body is more differentiated, as earlier I told you that in algae they are completely halophytes, means there is no body differentiation. But in bryophytes there are little bit of differentiation in their body. It is, other than this, it is thallus-like and prostrate and or erect and attached to the substratum by rhizoids. Means they do not have a clear root. Why they are called prostrate, and because they do not have, actually they do not have vascular bundles or tissues present. So because of that, how will they do their transportation will occur? So because of that, they are not very tall plants, they are prostrate, means they are attached to the substratum. Other than this, if I talk about bryophytes, so how they are attached to the substratum by the rhizoids. So in few bryophytes, like if I talk about liverworts, so there are unicellular rhizoids are present, and in mosses there are multicellular rhizoids are present. So what are the rhizoids? So if you recall, rhizoids are actually root-like structures which helps to the transportation or absorption of mineral and water from the soil, and it also anchored the plants to the soil. So again, if I talk about bryophytes are divided into liverworts and mosses. So if I talk about plant body of liverworts, so as earlier I told you that their body will be thalloid, means there will be no differentiation in stem, leaves and roots. And the plant body of liverwort is thalloid and dorsiventral, means they have 2 types of structure. Whereas if I talk about mosses, they have upright slender axis bearing spirally arranged leaves. Means like mosses are little mature than the liverworts. As why? Because they have a different body, little bit of body differentiation. And the main plant body of bryophyte is gamete producing, means they do not have a sporophyte, free living sporophyte, means here like they come in the category of they show the haploidiploidic life cycle, means they have alternation of generation, but the main plant body will be gametophyte. So they will produce the gametes, and that's why they are called a gametophyte. Other than this, it bears the male sex organs, male and female male sex organs, that is called the antheridia, and female sex organ is called the archegonia. So if here we are talking about bryophytes, so here a male gamete will be antheridium. And female gamete will be archegonium. So if I talk about like our gametes of bryophytes, so male gamete will be antheridia and female gamete will be archegonia. As earlier we have also discussed that cryptogamy will be the spore producing plant. So the male and female gametes produce and they form a zygote, and again the zygote forms a multicellular body that is called a sporophyte. But they are come in the category of haplodiplontic life cycle, so it produces haploid spores, and these spores germinate to form the gametophyte. Like as earlier we have also discussed about the haplodiplontic life cycle. So where what we have discussed, like if I talk about bryophytes, so main plant body was the gametophyte. So here what happens, like a plant body, that gametophyte will release the gametes, and again these gametes will fuse, that is fertilization, and they form a zygote. So this zygote will form the sporophytes, and immediately the spores will go under the meiosis and will form the main plant body, that will be gametophyte. So here sporophyte and both, they will show both the life cycle, sporophyte generation, two phases, sporophyte as well as gametophyte. But if I talk about particularly bryophytes, so the main plant body will be gametophyte. So now pteridophytes. So pteridophyte, the main plant body is sporophyte, so which is differentiated into true root, stem and leaves. So if I talk about the pteridophytes, so they are the actually true real terrestrial plants, means they do not need water. Like so that's why they are the real terrestrial plants. And here, as they also show a haplodiplontic life cycle, means they also have a separate sporophyte life cycle and gametophyte life cycle. But as if you talk about bryophytes, so their main sporophyte was partially or totally dependent on the gametophyte. But what happens in pteridophytes, here sporophyte body will be dominant, diploid, independent and photosynthetic stage, means a gametophyte will soon go and changes into a sporophyte. So these organs possess well differentiated vascular tissues. Like till bryophytes there was no vascular tissues, these vascular tissues were absent. That's why mostly the body is thalloid, means the body was not differentiated into root, stem and leaves. But as if you see that changes like advancement, so pteridophytes are more advanced than the bryophytes. They are ferns, they have erect plant body, and they have root, stem and leaves. So these organs possess other than this, these organs also possess well differentiated vascular tissues. Other than this, the sporophytes bears sporangia which produce spores. So here what happens in pteridophytes, sporophytes bears some sporangia and they which produce the spores, and these spores again germinate to form the gametophytes, which require cool, damp places to grow, and the gametophytes bears male and female sex organs, and they are called the antheridia and archegonia respectively. And water is required for transfer of male gamete to archegonium, where zygote is formed after fertilization. So students, if I talk about pteridophytes and their what kind of sexual life cycle they shows, so here, like if I talk about main plant body in pteridophyte is sporophyte. So these sporophyte actually produce the spores. Now if I talk about gametes, so here our gametes will be flagellated, means they have flagella because for the sexual reproduction they need water, and the sex organs will, male sex organ will call the antheridia and the female sex organ will call the archegonia respectively. So water is required for the transfer of male gamete to the archegonium, where so what happens there, zygote is formed after fertilization, and these zygote undergo mitosis and they produce the main sporophyte plant body. So here we have discussed about bryophytes and pteridophytes and thallophytes. So they are called the cryptogams, means they have concealed reproductive system. And if I talk about the plant body, so they do not have, they are spores producing plants and they do not have flower or seeds. But if you in phanerogam plants, they are more advanced than pteridophytes. As we have seen, they are some in if you talk about evolutionary advancement, So the Gymnosperms and Angiosperms are more advanced category, and they come under the category of phanerogams, means they are seed bearing plants and they have a visible reproductive system.
Choose the right kindergarten, a right bag and matching bottle to go with, the right school, the right friends, choose the right subjects and score well, be an expert in all, the right teacher, and make sure that they like you. Choose the right timing, the right bus, and take a cab if getting late, the right train, and don't stand near the gates. Mind the pockets, better get into ladies' compartment. Make sure your mustache hasn't started coming. Choose the right study time and forget games, IPL, IHL, rock and metal, guitar, axe. The right group and be a model to your brother. Seriously. Choose the right syllabus, the right test paper. Keep guessing questions for exams. Choose the right branch, the right college, the right stream. Choose the right career. Lucky to have a father's business to take care of and a father to allow that. The right counselor, the right form, and make sure the project is submitted on time. Choose the right website and rely on your friends for more information. Oblivious of the sites they have been to, there is no end to your woes. Getting better with every step you climb up the ladder. The summer vacation shorter, the bucket list bigger. The night darker, the books heavier. The only light you have is your friends ahead of you. Probably he is right. Ever thought how he got the direction? No more spending your energy and money on coaching classes. No more missing classes for rain, rally, and nonsense. Get your interest back in subjects through our creative ways of teaching. Doubts, concepts, applications, all explained through one vibrant animation. Subjects covered by multiple teachers with repeat telecasts. Special programs only for basic foundation and paper analysis. Personality development, career counseling, admissions, hobbies, all covered. A new approach to study with long-term perspective. So sit back comfortably in your homes and watch Study Spectrum TV channel.
the basis of their cotyledons, that is dicotyledon and monocotyledon. So what are these cotyledons? Means the leaves which are present inside the embryo. So if I start with the dicotyledon, so here two cotyledon will be present in the seed, whereas if you go to monocotyledon, here only single cotyledon will be present inside the embryo. Now if you talk about root system, so in dicot plants the root system will be taproot, whereas in monocotyledon plant the root system will be adventitious root. Now again if you come to dicotyledon plant, so stem will be branched. So you can see the many example like mango tree, various shrubs, herbs, they have a number of branches, whereas if you come to monocotyledon, here branches are absent, they are unbranched plants. Now if we talk about leaves, so here in dicot leaves will be reticulated, like something like this. It will be something, so here the venation reticulate, here you can see the net like structure, that is a reticulate venation. And in monocotyledons the venation will be parallel, it will be something like this. Other than this, here if I talk about dicotyledon, so vascular bundle will be conjoint, collateral and open. Means here there will be a cambium present between the xylem and phloem, whereas in vascular bundles of monocotyledon it will be conjoint, collateral and closed. So in dicotyledon, as cambium is present between the xylem and phloem, so we can see the secondary growth in dicotyledon plants, whereas in monocotyledons secondary growth will be absent. Now the vascular bundles will be rings will be present in dicotyledon, means here the vascular bundles will be arranged in rings, whereas in monocotyledon plants vascular bundles will be scattered. So if you take the example of dicotyledons, so all the flowering plants like hibiscus rosa sinensis, sunflower, mustard pea, all will come in the category of dicotyledon plants, whereas in monocotyledon we can take the example of maize, wheat. So all the flowers which have this kind of leaves, like one leaf present at each node, will come in the category of monocots. So this is about how we can distinguish between dicotyledon plant and monocotyledon plants. Now the next question is distinguish between bryophytes and pteridophytes. So students, if I talk about bryophytes, so plant body is not well differentiated. Means here mostly the plants are thallus-like structures. But if you see in pteridophytes, here the plant body will be well differentiated into root, stem and leaves. Now if you come to bryophytes, vascular tissues will be absent. But if you come to pteridophytes, these are the only plants where first time vascular tissues were present. Means this is the evolution of vascular tissues in pteridophytes. Now if you come to bryophytes, gametophyte is dominant phase. But in the life cycle of pteridophytes, the sporophyte phase will be dominant. Now, if you come to Bryophytes, tuber and germa are present. So these are the vegetative structures which can, if come in the contact with water and they come out from the body, they can, if they get the favorable condition, they can give rise to a new plant. But no such kind of structure is present in the pteridophytes. Whereas if I talk about, like we all know that alternation of generation occurs in all the plants life cycle. So if you see the life cycle of bryophytes, so sporophyte will be semi-parasite or totally parasite on the gametophyte. But in the pteridophytes, both the generations are independent. Means sometimes it will be in the form of prothallus structure gametophyte, and after some time it will be changes from the new sporophyte plant. Now, sporophyll is not leafy like in the bryophytes, whereas in this pteridophytes, sporophyll will be leafy. So these are the few differences between the bryophytes and pteridophytes. Now, the next question. So students, now we are going to start with the questions. So here firstly we will start with the long answer questions. Now the first question is, give the characteristics of algae with 2 examples. So students, as earlier we have discussed about algae. So firstly we should know, we can write about their habitat, like what kind of habitat they show. So mostly if I talk about algae, they are aquatic. Sometimes there are many algae which are marine, some lives in fresh water, some grown in marine water, whereas some are terrestrial also, but mostly they are aquatic. And most of them are free living, but there are some algae which shows symbiotic relationship also. Other than this, you can also write down about the structure of algae. Sometimes, like if you see, there are many, we have also discussed it, that there are many algae which are microscopic, as chlorella. Some are multicellular, branched and filamentous as spirogyra, whereas some are filamentous, but some of them are very loose. So these are the here few characteristics through which you can write about the structure of algae. Now if you see the cell wall, so as earlier we have discussed that they have double layered wall. So one is made up of cellulose and another is made up of pectin. So cellulose will be the inner wall and pectin will be the outer wall. Otherwise, if you see the roll off, so they provide the rigidity and support to the cell. Other than this, we can also write about the nutrition of algae. So these are the green plants. So mostly they are the autotrophic, means they can make their own food. They are photosynthetic. Other than this, they have a chlorophyll A, that is a very necessary pigment, whereas they also have a accessory pigments like chlorophyll B, chlorophyll C, chlorophyll D, carotene, xanthophylls, phycoerythrin. So these are the pigments of algae. You can write about the nutrition and pigments of algae. Other than this, if you talk about, we can also write down about the reserved food material of algae. So it is in the form of starch. So this is all about the general characteristics of algae. But other than this, we can also write down about the reproduction of algae. So as we all know that algae divides by 3 methods: vegetatively, asexually and sexually. So what happens vegetatively? Vegetatively they divide by the process of fragmentation. As earlier we have discussed about the spirogyra. So when it get the favorable conditions like proper nutrition, water and space, So each and every algae divides into three parts, and each and every part of the part can give rise to a new individual. Other than this, they also divide asexually by motile or non-motile spores. Other than this, they also reproduce sexually by fusion of gametes. Other than this, they show alternation of generation. So one generation will be haploid, or one generation will be haploid dominant, and other generation will be short living, that is and diploid or sporophyte. So haploid generation means here in algae the body is thalloid, means the body is not well differentiated into root, stem and leaves. So that's why the algae have they are not, their body is thalloid. So because of that, if you see main plant body will be gametophyte, and the short-lived body will be the sporophyte. So this is about the general characteristics of algae. We can here we have discussed about the two examples. So there are many examples of algae like Spirogyra, Eulothrix, Volvox, Chlamydomonas. So you can write down all these examples. Now the next question is, enlist the general characteristics of Pteridophyta with two examples. So students, if you recall, what is pteridophytes? These are the first true terrestrial plants on the earth. Here body is well differentiated into root, stem and leaves. So that's why they have a vascular tissue present, so that they are vascular plants. They are also known as vascular cryptogams. Why cryptogams? Because they are come under the cryptogams. They have a concealed reproductive system. They do not develop any kind of flowers, fruits or seeds. That's why they are called the non-seed bearing plants. Now if you recall about the leaves, we can also write down about the leaves. So leaves can be scaly in equisetum, otherwise it can be simple and sessile in Lycopodium, whereas pinnately compound in ferns. So pinnately means actually like if I talk about pteridophytes, their leaves are like feather-like. We can also write about the life cycle. So these kind of algae shows the heteromorphic alternation of generation, means one phase will be sporophyte, so another phase will be the gametophyte. Now sporophyte, here a main plant body is in pteridophytes, the main plant body is sporophyte, means the body will be well differentiated into stem, roots and leaves. So here, as the main plant body is sporophyte, it will be diploid dominant, whereas gametophyte will be haploid, green and independent. Why? Because they show haplodiploidic life cycle. So here both the stages will be independent, but the main plant body will be sporophyte. That's why we say that main plant body is sporophyte and it is diploid and dominant, and it is long-lived plant body. Examples can be Lycopodium, Nephrolapsis, and we can also take the example of Equisetum. So these are the few examples of pteridophytes. So what we can write, these are the terrestrial plants and they have a well differentiated plant body, and they are first vascular plants. Now the next question is, give the salient features of Bryophyta with two examples. Now if I talk about bryophytes, so mostly they are the terrestrial plants. They are also called the plant amphibians. So why are they called the plant amphibians? Because they need water for their life. They grow on a moist and shady place, but for the reproduction they need water. Other than this, they grow in shady and moist places. They have true roots are absent. Means, what is the meaning of true roots? So other than this true roots, they have rhizoids. So here true root is absent, where rhizoid is present, which helps in the absorption of water and minerals. As earlier what we have discussed, that if you recall in alga, body was not differentiated, but here the body will be little bit of differentiated. Like plant bodies, thallus, like not differentiated into root, stem and leaves in liverworts like Riccia and Markensia. Whereas in mosses, it is thallus and it is foliose, and they bear leaf-like structures. Other than this, they have a conducting strand of few thick walled cells are present. Means they are non-vascular plants, but they have a conducting strand that is present, which helps in the conduction of water and minerals. Other than this, we can also write down about they do not produce any kind of flower or seeds. So this is about the few characteristics of bryophytes. Now if you see the reproduction, so again bryophytes also can be divided by vegetatively. They reproduce by tubers and gyma, means these are the few vegetative structure present in bryophytes. So when they come in the contact with water or they fall down from the body, they are capable to give rise to a new individual. Asexually, they also reproduce by the spore formation and sexually by the gamete formation. So here if you see, now students, very short answer questions. Now what are the cryptogams? So if I talk about cryptogams, so actually there are many plants of kingdom Plantae are come in the category of cryptogams like algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes. So what are these, why are they different from phanerogams? Because they are the spore producing plants. So cryptogams are the plants which will produce the spores. They do not produce any kind of seeds. Other than this, if you talk about their reproductive system, so it is hidden somewhere inside the leaf. So means you cannot see the reproductive system. So here, like if you see like meaning of cryptos, cryptos means concealed, means the reproductive organ will be concealed in the cryptogams, and they are spore producing plants and they do not produce any kind of seeds. Now the next question, name the accessory pigments of algae. So as we know that how algae are divided into different classes according to their pigments and their stored food material. So what are these pigments? So if I talk about necessary pigment, that will be a chlorophyll A. But there are many accessory pigments are also present in algae. These will be the chlorophyll B, chlorophyll C, chlorophyll D, carotene, xanthophyll, other than this phycocyanin and phycoerythrin. So these are the few accessory pigments of algae. Now give any two examples of bryophytes. So students, bryophytes are the plants which are called the amphibious plants. So if you see the example, as we can take the example of liverworts like Brixia, Markensia, whereas in mosses we can take the example of Funaria. Now the next question, who first used the term gymnosperm? So actually the gymnosperm was a word which was first coined by the Theophrastus in 300 BC in his book Inquiry of Plants. Inquiry of Plants. Now we are going to start with the short answer questions. So first question is, name various groups of vascular plants. Give one characteristic feature of each group. So what are the vascular plants? Means the plants in which have xylem and phloem tissues will be present. So what are those plants? So these are the pteridophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperms. So these are the parts, the kingdom plants, few groups of plants which have a vascular tissues present. So let us start with the pteridophyta. So here these are also called the vascular plants, and they are the first land plants which have a well differentiated body. That means the body is divided into root, stem and leaves. So if I talk about pteridophytes, so they are the vascular plants. And why? And they are the first terrestrial plants. You can write about this. Now if you start with gymnosperms, so here these are also the vascular plants. So here seed formation occur, and they are the microspore producing, they have a microspores producing microsporophylls and are aggregated, and they form a male and female cones. So that's why they are also called the conifers. So this is actually a unique example, a unique characteristics of gymnosperms. They do not have flower. They have a cone-like structures, that is microspores and microsporangia and megasporangia. Now angiosperms. So if you see the characteristic of angiosperms, they are also vascular plants. So their unique feature is double fertilization. Means here body is divided, like two types of fertilization occurs. Means male pollen grain have two male gamete. One male gamete will fertilize with egg cell, and another male gamete will fertilize with the secondary nucleus. Other than this, there is one more characteristic of angiosperm, that they are the they are divided into two subclasses according to their cotyledons. So these cotyledons, what are these cotyledons? These are nothing but these are the seeds-like structure present inside in the embryo. So these, according to these cotyledons, again the angiosperms are divided into dicots and monocots. So dicots means seeds have two cotyledon and they have a taproot, whereas if I talk about monocot, so they have single cotyledon and roots are adventitious. Means in dicot root will be taproot, in monocots root will be adventitious. So these are the some things which we can write in this question, like name various groups of vascular plants. So what all you can write? You can write about pteridophytes, gymnosperm and angiosperms and their unique characteristics. Like firstly, when we came to pteridophytes, we have seen that these are the first terrestrial land plants. In gymnosperms, these are the conifers. Means the sporophylls, when aggregate, they form the microsporophyll and megasporophyll, and they form the cones, so they are also called the conifers. Whereas if I talk about angiosperms, so what is the unique characteristics? Here double fertilization takes place, and again the angiosperms are divided into two classes, dicots and monocots, on the basis of their cotyledons. Now the next question, differentiate between gymnosperms and angiosperms. So students, as what all are the main difference between gymnosperm? How can we distinguish that whether the plant is gymnosperm or angiosperms? So the first very important thing, the gymnosperms are called the naked seeds plants. Whereas if I talk about angiosperms, so they have an enclosed seed. Now if I talk about gymnosperms, so leaves are generally dimorphic and scaly. But if you recall about angiosperms, here the leaves are broad leaves. Other than this, we can take the one example, that if you see the xylem of gymnosperms, so they have only tracheates, whereas in the xylem of angiosperms have tracheates and trachea, both are present. Now if you see the pollination, so gymnosperm pollination is direct, whereas in angiosperms pollination is indirect. Now if I talk about gymnosperms, so microsporophylls forms the cones, Whereas if you see the angiosperms, here cones are completely absent. Now you can also write about gymnosperms have a single fertilization, whereas angiosperms have a double fertilization occurs. So these are the few characteristics through which we can distinguish between the gymnosperms and angiosperms. Now the next question is, write a note on botanical gardens. So what are these botanical gardens and what is its history? So the origin of botanical gardens are of any countries associated with its history of its civilization, where gardens and parks are established in various periods. So actually, what is this botanical garden? What is its use? So it is a place where plants are cultivated for scientific, educational and ornamental purposes. They grow local flora. Other than this, they often including a library, local flora, and they provide facilities for the collection of living plant material for the studies. They also provide the seeds for its botanical investigation. So these are the few things which we can see in the botanical garden. Other than this, they also contain herbaria, greenhouses and research laboratory. So this is all about the botanical garden.